just tell me when you're ready. We'll start beginning with the...
I'm ready.
Perfect. Okay, so Brinzel will be introducing you and then we'll start the session.
Okay.
Perfect.
And get on with the presentation mode. Do you see the presentation mode, or do you see the navigation mode?
So we can see the presentation, but with the current slide. So you'll have to click on it.
Hold on, let me see how I switch that. Okay, how about now?
Yes, done.
Better? Okay. All right. So let's begin with how to ideate. And ideation is one of the key activity in order to, if you are on the startup journey, if you are an aspiring entrepreneur, even if you are simply working on a project where you need to generate lots of good ideas. How do we actually do that, right? So let's begin with first understand on the mindset behind the ideation. So this is one of the very wonderful quote by Albert Einstein. He says, imagination is more important for the ideation. Imagination is more important than the knowledge. So let's understand for a while, whatever the knowledge we have, that defines what we currently know and understand. Everything we know and understand, that is based on our knowledge. However, imagination, it points to the future that we might all discover and create. And today's time where we are, everyone was talking about disruptive time. Everybody talks about innovation. Everybody talks about, say, the startup ecosystem is booming. That's where what is important is imagination. So ideation is all about having the right imagination at the very first place. It does not matter whether it's feasible, it's doable. What is important is, first is, can you imagine something crazy? Can you imagine something out of the box, right? That is important. So we will talk about different techniques, different ways to imagine, and I will try to trigger your thought process in the very same direction. Okay, but before we get into the different types, let's understand, because in terms of imagination, one of the key thing is to have our creativity. What is creativity and what is creative thinking? Because creative thinking will help you, your creative confidence that you can think creatively, that will help you come up with the ideas which is more, and everybody is looking for the creative ideas, right? So how our brain functions and how we generate ideas. So let's little bit understand the physiology of ideations, physiology of a thought process, and then we'll take it from there. Okay. So if I want to talk about simple the definition of creativity, then creativity is nothing but the problem solving. At the end of the day, it's a problem solving with what? With relevance and novelty. Relevance is that you are solving the problem for the right problem, right? The solution is for the right problem, which is relevance. Okay, and novelty is an out of the box, which you have done it for, or somebody has done it for the very first time, or this solution was never thought of, right? So the original solution, that is the novelty, right? So out of the box, we would call it. So it has to, at the end of the day, creativity is nothing but the problem solving with the relevance and novelty. Now let's understand how our brain functions when we talk about the creativity or the problem solving or the idea generation. So let's assume that if I give you the problem, if I say that, you know what, I have this problem, what should I do? So let's pick one. Let's say Brency, right? If I say Brency, I have a problem. I have this problem. What should I do? What do you think could be the right solutions? Now, the moment I give her the problem, the moment I share my problem with her, she will start immediately thinking about the solutions. That, okay, Rohan, you can do this, you can do that, and so on and so forth, right? So as the time goes, the solution automatically, she starts giving me a lot of solutions, right? Rohan, you can do this, Rohan, you can do that, or anything, right? All these solutions which Brency suggests me in initial phase, all the solutions are either coming from her past experience, her knowledge, her geographical or a cultural background, her social background, her experiences of her life, and or something that she has already done before. All these solutions comes based on that only. So that comes based on her knowledge, right? So they are not relevant solutions. Majority of the time, what we do is we take one of the solution and we execute it, and we do not even push our imagination further, because we got the solution from our knowledge, from our experience, from our educational background, and we immediately execute it, and we do not push ourselves further. But instead of going with the execution of a solution, we keep pushing ourselves with the more solutions. Then slowly you enter into the novel area, right? So as time passes, the solution decreases, and suddenly there are always triggers. Those triggers, it could be words, it could be some visualizations, it could be some event, anything that triggers, and you get into the novel ideas. That is where you start thinking creatively, because you are no longer accepting the relevance area. So you need to push your thought process even further and enter into the novel area zone, where you start thinking more creatively. So then you start thinking, coming up with the more ideas, more different creative ideas. But now pushing is not as simple as it sounds. That, you know what, I have 5 ideas, now I'll still keep thinking and I will get into the novel area. No, it does not go with like that. You need certain triggers, you need certain collaborations, you need certain words or certain visualizations. That moment, I'm sure that You might have events, you might have the triggers where somebody might have said that, you know what, this is, and you suddenly like, oh my God, ye to maine socha hi nahi tha, or I haven't thought about it. Thanks. Or now since you said that, I can think of this, right? So you might have had those moments. Those moments is called the throne of agony moments, which actually triggers your thought process. Okay, and we will work with, we will take an example, we will actually do some activity, and we will understand how this actually functions. So always, the whole point is that do not execute your ideas immediately. The moment you get an idea, do not rush to, and as a human nature, we want to immediately execute the ideas because we always are in a rush to get the work done. Okay, the moment we get into the rut of getting the work done, we get an idea, we execute it. Instead, you stop. You keep thinking, keep trigger your thought process in a different direction. Try to detour your thought process. How do we do that? Let's take an example, and let's take an exercise around that. Okay, so let's play one game. Okay, this I call it, it's a very simple game. It's called a brick game. Okay, now what I want you to do is so before I hold on. Let me see if I can. Okay. What I want you to do is here, I want you to simply take a pen and a paper, or a paper and pencil, anything, and think of, I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Okay, let's take 2 minutes, should be good enough. 2 minutes, and think of all the applications you can think of, the ways to use simple brick. Like how many different ways you can do use the brick. Okay, you can use the wall, and so on and so forth, right? Think about all the different uses you can think of using a brick. Okay, your goal is you have to come up with 1,000 uses of bricks within a 2 minutes. Okay, so now let's start there. Take a piece of pen and a paper, and think about the solutions, different way to use bricks. Okay, and then we'll talk it. Okay, so your time starts now. 2 minutes. Okay, I'll keep mute meanwhile. Let me see if I can start counter as well. Start chat. It's better. And meanwhile, if you have any questions, you can just feel free to put it in the chat. Now I have a chat open as well, so I can answer that. But I hope this is clear to you. And if you are done, you can just simply put it that how many ideas you have come up with, like 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 15, 20, whatever. Okay, but different ways to use bricks. Just think about, go crazy. Do not worry about the feasibility. Do not worry about the, you can also think about like jugards, right? Jugad, as we do very often. Jugad is also one type of a creative thought process. So you can think of all the jugards you can do it with the brick as well. So that should be fine. Okay, one more minute, and we should be done. Okay, last 30 seconds. And if you are done, just put the numbers, like how many ideas you have come up with. You can share your ideas. I would rather say don't share, just put the numbers and we'll take it from there. Just put the numbers like 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever. Okay, I don't see any movement in the chat, so I just want to make sure you guys are there. And Okay. Deepen 8. That's nice. Rohit 11. 10 plus. 4, 6. Super, super. Very nice. 7. Okay. Cool. Now let's 5. Okay. Good. Now let's do this. Let's quickly. Now I'm going to put you guys all in a breakout session for 2 minutes again. Okay. Share your ideas. Share your thought. All your ideas. All the uses. Discuss with each other. You may want to enable your camera during that time because you will be talking in a group of 4. So discuss it. And while discussing, think about if you can come up with other ideas. Right. For example, let's say if I'm in the group with, let's say, Charvi, Manav, and Grincy, we are in a one group. We will share our ideas. Like, Manav will tell his 4 ideas. Charvi will share her 6. Grincy will say 7, and all these. And then based on that, if you can group ideate together, and or with the Charvi's idea, can Manav think of some more ideas, right? So simply discuss those among each other, and see if you can come up with more ideas. Okay. So, Shupra, you maybe want to help me stop.
उतना भारी थोड़ी यूज कर सकते हैं।
नहीं, इतना भारी नहीं होता भाई।
क्या पता भाई उसे फुटबॉल खेलना।
हाँ, फिर उसके उससे तोड़ के उसका पेपर वेट की तरीके भी यूज कर सकते हैं ना।
हाँ वो है, पेपर वेट तरीके यूज कर सकते हैं।
We are live on YouTube. भाई YouTube पर आज
जो ये
हाँ
over
जी हाँ जी
Like we can use it for construction.
yeah. Apart from that, we can crush the brick.
Mostly there are,
Yes, Jay, please.
yeah, we can crush the brick and use it to make another stuff like fire ovens and stuff, you know.
Yeah, and we can also mix it for a binding
In
material as
case,
well.
yeah, binding materials.
Uh, Anyone else?
Also in nuclear reactors, bricks are used, right? Are those same bricks or different type of brick?
Yes, those are.
I think they are same type of bricks.
Hmm. But those bricks are also lead coated. They are not normal bricks, I guess.
Basically, they are bricks, but they are a bit unique in nature. So yeah,
Right.
but ultimately we can say that brick could be used there as well.
Yes.
Dhara?
Now, I'm not sure how many actually conversation happens in the room because I also joined one room and apparently a couple of people were on mute all the time. So, but just in case, if you had a conversation, let me, if anybody wants to share that, is there any more ideas popped up during the discussion? Is there any more ideas have come up? You can come up with any more uses of breaks just by having a simple conversation. If anybody had that experience, if you want to unmute and share with us, share with the room, or you can even write it on the chat box. That should be okay as well. Any more ideas, or if they want to share their ideas, that while having a discussion, we were able to generate like 2 more ideas, which were this or this or this. Also, I want you to observe one more thing is while generating these ideas, let's say I see a lot of people, let's say Brenchi has 7 ideas, right? Someone has, Rohit has 11 ideas, Vaidik has 10 plus ideas. Now, all these ideas, when you have actually created, now observe those solutions, your initial solutions, all the first 5 ideas could be very obvious ideas. The more you go down the road, the 9th or 10th and 11th ideas are more creative ideas, right? So if you can push yourself, the more number of ideas you try to generate, it goes into the more creative way, right? So this is where you need to. So the whole point I was trying to make is before we learn about how to ideate, how to come up with the different ideas, and we will talk about different techniques. We will talk about what to look for, what to observe, where to research while doing an ideation. The first point is that have a quantity of ideas. That is very important. The whole point I was trying to make with the brick game is that have as many ideas as possible. The best way to get a good idea is to have lots of ideas, right? That is one of the famous saying by Linus Pauling. I might have in the slide, but the point is just push yourself with the ideas. And the moment you get more ideas, you will enter from the relevance to the novel zones and try to have discussions, try to collaborate, try to get those triggers, because those triggers will help you come up with lots of creative ideas. Okay, so now that's the first point. Okay, come up with lots of ideas, go with the quantity. Now here, this is where we enter into the creative zone, the innovator zone, right? I always believe one thing, that we don't want to live in our own future, somebody else's future, right? We don't want somebody else to define our future. We have to live in our own future. And in our own future, you need to start thinking like an innovator. Because the moment you start thinking like innovator, you start thinking about different ideas. And that's where what the innovator's task is, come up with an innovative idea. Now, how do you think like an innovator? Okay, there are 5 core principles. These are extremely important and beautiful principles. You follow simple these 5 rules, and you can come up with an amazing ideas. You will actually uncover a lot of things. Your thought process will go in an extreme different directions. Okay, so number 1 is forget about predictions. We do not predict. Innovators or the futurists, or they do not predict, or even an aspiring entrepreneurs, they do not predict, they imagine. Okay, so for example, all these, if you look at it, all these unicorns, all these big organizations, all which started as a startup, they have not predicted that 2020 will look like this, that 2025 might look like this, 2030 might look like this. They imagine that I want to be here by 2030, and then they work on the reverse. That, okay, now how do I make it happen? Like, for example, if you talk about Facebook, then Mark Zuckerberg, when started, he did not predict that social media will be the key in the future. He simply created it. He imagined that I wanted to have the social media as the means of the communication where we can connect the whole globe, and that's where he executed. Right? Elon Musk, if you look at it, we consider is an innovator of the millennium. He did not predict that, in the future we might go to the Mars. He said, I want to go to the Mars. This is what he has imagined. So in order to come up with, in order to ideate, one of the first things is you need to have that imagination. Okay, so we do not predict here, we imagine. The moment you have imagined, a lot of people always think about that idea has to be feasible. No, idea does not have to be feasible. Idea has to be imaginative. It is absolutely okay to have the craziest ideas, because the craziest ideas might lead you to something feasible, might lead you to something disruptive, might lead you to something innovative. Okay, so forget about predictions. What we do is we imagine. That is the first key. Okay, number 2 is focus on signals. Now, let me give you an example of a signal. What is signal? Signal is, so let's talk about technology. All the technology in the world, when they come for the very first time, they come in an isolation. Somebody starts with some imagination, they have created something. Nobody knows what happens if it becomes large, if it becomes common, if it becomes scalable, right? But it starts with an isolation. Somebody sees that, is like, you know what, this is very good. Like taking an example of an applications. Apple has come up with the thought of having a third-party app way back in 2008 when the first iPhone came. He said, you know what, we will have the app store where even third party can come up with an application and put it on the phone. Now that's the idea, that simple idea. And one guy saw that, you know what, this is a great platform. I can create my own application and put it on the phone. Now everybody has a phone. Can I use this technology to address the commute problem? Because there is a huge commute in the big cities. There is no public transportation. Commute is very expensive. Can I make it affordable using this platform? And he came up with an idea called an Uber. And today Uber and Ola has become the biggest unicorns and one of the startups, right? They have reached the new heights. Similarly, think about Swiggy, think about social medias, think about Airbnb, think about Byju's, think about any startup. They have used a certain technology which is already available. They have simply connected those dots and come up with. So focus on the signals, because signals are nothing but those future dots which is already there in the current or in the present scenario. It's all about you imagining and connecting those dots and put it together. Now, think about this. Google and Apple is working on the automotive cars, like autonomous cars, driverless cars. Now, do you think that's a signal that Ubers or Olas of the world might replace by all the cars with an autonomous or a driverless cars, where in the future or by 2025, you simply using your mobile phone, you are calling an Uber, comes up, it automatically, it picks up the nearest Uber or nearest car, picks up your signal, comes to your location using the GPS or using your correct location. It comes to you, you simply unlock it with some maybe OTP or some code or some barcode or some QR code anywhere, but basically some security. You open the door, so it authenticates that you are the passenger or you are the one who ordered it. You get into the car, you simply enter your destination on the phone, and it drops you there using the GPS. Now, do you think that's possible in next 5 years? Right? You can give me yeses on the chat, okay? So I know that you are listening. Do you think, first of all, do you think that's possible? Because think about this, autonomous cars is already there, security already there, GPS technology, all the technology to make it happen, it's already there. It's all about someone has to connect those dots, connect those technology together and make it happen. Right? So idea comes, ideations always happens, you do not have to think all together from the scratch all the times. It's all about doing the right research to identify those signals that what world is doing right now, what are the things, what are the technology is coming, and how do I use the same technology to come up and I solve different problems, right? It's all about connecting those dots to solve some problems by converting that problem into an application. It's simple as that. Right? And we will talk about this signal. Let's talk about first what signal is exactly. Right? A signal is a specific example of the future in the present. Okay, it's there in the. It's going to be much better in the future, but it is there at a small scale. It is about who is the person who takes that signal and converts into the right application and makes it bigger, right? Signal is, it says the future is already here, it is just not evenly distributed. So someone takes that idea and converts that into a evenly distributed with the right application. Signal is the clue that things might soon be different. But the question is how, right? So this is what the innovators, and if you want to actually generate a creative ideas, you need to, one of the key thing is come up with lots of ideas. Forget about prediction, imagine. Imagination is the key. Okay, this is where you practice your creative confidence, you practice your creative instinct. Imagine, go crazy with your ideas. Look around what the world is giving you. Identify, take those signals, because that will trigger your thought process. That will push your brain, push your thought process, push your imagination from the relevance to the novel ideas. So this is very important to identify the signals. We'll take one example. I wanted to first showcase one example. I'll tell you one signal here, and tell me what you think of this. Okay, tell me what you think of this, and I request everyone to at least interact. Okay, put something on the chat, put questions, put your thought process, give comments, so I know that it makes sense or you are able to understand what I'm trying to do. Okay, so give me yes if signal portion is clear. The understanding of this is very clear. Give me yes or thumbs up or anything. So now let me go with an example of a signal. Okay, United Nations has unveiled a design for a new floating city that can withstand Category 5 hurricanes. So the whole, I'll tell you a different perspective. The United Nations, in collaboration with MIT, which is Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Explorers Club, and Oceanics, 4 organizations came together, and they have realized that can we create a floating city which can withstand the Category 5 hurricanes, because especially in the eastern coast of United States, there are a lot of natural calamities, hurricanes, tornadoes, and potential tsunamis and everything because of the coastal area. So is there any way we can create the floating cities? So they have started doing the research and they have come up with the design of a floating city. This is the design of a floating city. Okay. Now I'll tell you what the design is. Each city, each platform, you look at it on the screen, that is like the hexagonal platform that can take up to 300 residents. Okay. 6 platforms make a village, and 6 villages makes the entire city. So you are seeing is the entire city. Now this entire city is a self-sustainable. They can do their own agriculture. They have the they're made up of the sustainable materials, and these platforms are actually anchored on the bottom of the ocean. So at the time of a natural calamity, you can actually shift the entire city to somewhere else, right? So at the time of a natural calamity or any hurricanes or a tornado or a tsunami, you can actually move the entire city to one place to the other. Okay. So, and these are the few images. These are of course 3D images. They are still building it. The prototype is still getting ready. It was supposed to be ready by 2020, but due to pandemic, deadline has been shifted another couple of more years. So hopefully by 2022-23, we should be able to see something substantial as an output. The question here is, so these are some of the just an images. That this is how they are planning. These are just an imaginary this thing. The question here is, what happens if this becomes common? The question here is that on the earth, there are only 30% of the land. Okay, 70% is ocean. What happens if humans are able to, or if they've been to conquer the oceans as well, right? If this becomes common, if there are millions of cities, today they are simply testing one. Imagine there are millions and thousands of cities or lakhs of cities in the ocean. What happens, what your world look like, what the way your life will look like in 2030 or 2035, where you will be living in one city, you are working on other city, you have to travel, and that's your common lifestyle. What your life might look like in the future, right? Think about this. Can you think about different ways? What are the positives? What are the negatives? These are the signals. This tells us that future might be very different, and this also tells us that I could have a lot more opportunity. How can I take advantage of this? How can I? What are the opportunities I might have in making it more sustainable? Is there any opportunity you can find? Is there any way you can work into this area? Do you think this is a fascinating? Do you think there is an opportunity to experiment new type of a government? Do you think there is an opportunity for the global citizenships? Who will own these cities? Who will govern the cities? All these questions comes into the mind. And this is where the ideas comes. This is where the solution comes. And these new ideas, it brings new opportunity. So identify, these are just one example. Just wanted to give you one example of a signal. That what signal is. Signal is a small thing happening somewhere which raises a lot of questions that future might be very different, and how identify those signals, because that signals will help you come up with lots of good ideas. Signal will help you come up with a lot of imaginations. Okay, is this clear? Signal, give me yes or give me thumbs up, anything. Just if this signal portion is clear, or if you have understood. Okay. Okay. Next is look back to look forward. In order to imagine, in order to ideate, sometimes we get stuck. You need to find out the patterns. You need to identify the pattern, how changes are happening. Okay, this is one way to trigger your thought process. This is one way to ideate. This is one way to imagine, right? So in order to, it says, thumb rule says that if you want to imagine the 10 years down the line, if you did line that what might 10 years look like, you go at least minimum 20 years back. You can go as back as you would prefer, but at least 20 years minimum if you want to imagine for 10 years. If you want to imagine for 50 years, you go 100 years. If you want to imagine for 100 years, you go back to 100 years. This is a ground rule. Okay. Now here I want to talk about the communication, right? Okay, let's take an example. Let's take this case study and let's imagine that what communication looks like. Let's try to generate ideas. Okay, and here you can generate ideas by putting your ideas or your imagination on a chat box, and I just want to see what you think of this. Okay, what ideas comes to your mind? Okay, for the future of communication, like how the future of communication might look like. So in order to imagine the future, let's come to till the present. Let's look at the past, how the communication has evolved over the last centuries, and then we will imagine what the future might look like. Okay, so let's go back all the way to 10,000 BC. Okay, 10,000 BC, there is only one way to communicate, that is face to face. So if I want to talk to Brency, there is only one way I can talk. I need to be in front of her, right? I need to she has to be there so I can talk to her, and that's the only way, face to face communication. There is no other way to communicate to people.
Recording stopped.
Then in 550 BC, first time Persians have invented mails. This is where the remote communication was possible. First time, if I want to talk to, take the same example, if I want to talk
Recording in progress.
Brency, I need to, I can write it, I can give it to someone, somebody takes that message, goes to Brency all the way wherever she is. It might take months, it might take days. She goes there, she hands over my letter, she reads it, she writes me back and comes back. So the point is that remote communications were made possible by Persians with the invention of mails in 550 BC. In 1854, phones have invented, and the remote communication was possible in real time. Okay, the days, because in the mails, the conversation was not possible. You can pass the message, you can communicate, but you cannot cope up with the conversation because there is a lot of break or a lot of time was consumed from one message to the other, right? So phones were invented and the real-time remote communication was possible. That was just a signal. Again, in 1854, phones were invented for signal. It was possible, but it was not commonly used until 1910, when phones came home and everybody started. It was easy communication for everyone, right? And it just became bigger, and the signal has just become bigger, and the communication changed. 1995, first time emails were born, where you can do the mass communication. You can communicate remotely to the multiple people at the very same time. I can send the email to multiple people, 100 people, 1,000 people. So the message communication from remotely to the multiple people was possible for the first time with an email. Then 2000, texting came and the entire language changed. We started using the different short text or lingo like LOL or ROFL and so on and so forth, right? BRB and TY and all these short texts we started using, and the new language were born to communicate faster, because now we got the remote communication. Now we want to communicate fast. We want to communicate effectively in the shortest possible time. 2003, Skype invented. Of course, international calling was there, but with the invention of a Skype or a voice over IP, the international calling has become affordable, and people start talking, communicating. World has come much closer, and international business have triggered. International relationship has started with the voice over IP technology. 2010, Apple has come up with the FaceTime, and the communication, the way we communicate to our family members, the way we communicate to our friends have changed, especially in the remote time, because now you can not only call people and listen to the audio, but you can even look at the people. You can see on a video chat, even the remotely, like, I can talk to my friend in all the way in a different country and look at it. So 2015, in the text messages has replaced by emojis. People only don't want to spend text, but they also want to share their expressions, their emotions, that what they feel. And literally at times we do communication using those emojis. Like entire conversation happens just using emojis, right? And we absolutely understand. So emojis have replaced text at a significant extent. 2019 to 2020, emojis were replaced by actually avatars, right? You can use your own face and create emojis around that. So you can create your own avatar and put those expressions on that. 2019 to 2021, today, the entire way we pass on education. And 2 years ago, I would have come to your college and given this presentation, but now we are doing on a Zoom, right? So the way we communicate, way we learn has completely changed. Now, if you look at it, every change happened, there is a pattern, there is a reason why it happened, right? Right now, we are at the present. We have now imagine what the future of communication looks like, what the communication might look like in 2030, what communication might look like in 2035. It's much easier to imagine. It's much easier to think about the different ideas, because now you see the pattern. This is where you uncover the pattern, because the changes always happen in a sequence. There is never a radical change. There is always a reason behind changes. Let's say, for example, Zoom was there, Webex was there, GoToMeetings was there. So all these remote what we are using today to communicate was there since last 10-15 years, but it never picked up until it was a right moment. In the pandemic, it was necessary to go to these virtual conferences, and suddenly this platform has been utilized at a much greater extent. So there is always a reason, there is always a driving factor which drives these changes. You identify, because signals are there, identify what are the drivers, why the changes needs to happen. The moment you have signals and the driving factor of the change, you can able to think, you can able to come up with an ideas which is more creative, which is more innovative. So in order to generate creative and innovative ideas, even if you are working on your startup, even if I believe that majority of you are from the incubation centers and startups, or maybe aspiring entrepreneurs, who are aspiring to start their own businesses, identify the signals or whatever the areas, identify what are the drivers, what driving these changes, what are the current problems are happening, and with an existing technology, identify the signals and connect those dots. Okay, that will able to or help you generate better ideas. Okay, clear till this? Okay, now I'm going to walk you through a few brainstorming activities. Okay, a few brainstorming techniques, and see how that works for you. Okay. So as I was saying, the best way to have ideas is to have lots of ideas. This is told by Linus Pauling. He is the only scientist and the chemist who has won the Nobel Prize twice, okay, in his lifetime. So let's talk about the different methods of brainstorming. Okay, one of the first method is a Postit method, where it is basically in 3 steps. Okay, first is a brain dump. So whenever you let me take an example of Brency, Rutvika, Manav, and I can see Rakshit. These are the few names I can see on the screen. So we are sitting together in the room. We want to brainstorm about the ideas. So how we start. So first we do is a brain dump. Brain dump is without even talking to each other. Simply dump everything what you have on a piece of paper. Just simply dump it out. Now, writing is very important. The moment you create, the moment you write things, your idea generates, because writing itself has a connection with your thought process, your imaginations. So the moment you start writing, you might have imagined one solution, but the moment you start writing, only writing itself will help you trigger a couple of more ideas. So it is very important to write it. Do not ever get into the confidence that, I don't have to write. I know what my ideas are. Even if you know what your ideas are, do not keep in your mind. Just put it on the paper, because the action of writing or put it on the paper will help you trigger a few more ideas. So never keep your ideas in your mind. Always write. It's very important. Okay. So brain dump is the first of all, putting all the ideas on the piece of paper. Brain write is consolidating. Now it's time that all the ideas which I have, which Brincy had, which Rakshit had, or Ritvika or Manav had, we all put together our ideas together on a one single platform. Now, either it's a notebook, if you are using the sticky notes, if you are using the Post-it, put it on the wall, put it on the big sheet. That's absolutely up to you. Or simply, if you're using the technology and if you're using the software, even the Word documents or an Excel sheet, so whatever, or you are using a collaborative platform, anything is fine. What is important is consolidating those ideas. Okay, so consolidate. And the third step is brain walk. This is where the conversation starts, right? So now we all have put our ideas together. Now I'll start with mine first. Let's say, okay, now or Brency will start with hers. That I have these ideas, and she starts sharing the ideas with all of us or within the team. She's walks everyone through her idea. Now, while she's walking, there are a lot of question happens. There are a lot of trigger happens. There are a lot of discussion starts, and this is where you start the discussion. So after Brency finishes, let's say Rakshit starts his idea sharing. Ritvika starts her idea sharing it. And we actually start sharing and we start triggering the conversation, because this conversation will help you come up with a lot more ideas. So, the convergence happens of the thought process. If you remember, this is exactly what we did in the brick game. First of all, we did it with our own ideas, and then we triggered the conversation, because conversation will help you. Okay, help you, your 10 ideas, your 11 ideas, your 5 or 7 ideas is, of course, there are few ideas will be very common, but once you start discussing it, there are 5 more ideas which triggers there and then, which nobody has thought individually. So this convergence of an ideas, convergence of a thought process is very important. Building ideas, we also call it building ideas on other people's ideas. You know what? Let's say Brency comes up with an idea and I really loved it. And I say, you know what, Brency, this is a fantastic idea. Now, since you have said this, I can also think of this. So basically what I've did is I have taken her idea, but with my own thought process, I have added to her ideas, right? And basically ideas get certain maturity, or ideas get converged into multiple people's thought process. Okay, so this is what the brain walk is. Clear on this? This is I hope this is very clear, the simple brainstorming approach. Okay, this is just a simple couple of photographs of my own projects and own of where we do brainstorming. So on the first hand, what we did is, first of all, we use the different color sticky note for each participant. Let's say in our case, Brency, let's say, uses pink, I uses yellow, one uses green, one uses blue, and so on and so forth. We write it down our own, put it on the whiteboard. Then now we have everything. On the second images, we now consolidate. We start discussing and put together the similar ideas. That's it. And it's not necessary that every idea is a unique idea. Brency had certain idea, the same idea, I might have it. I might have a little bit different flavor to it, maybe different tweak to the ideas, but ideas could be very similar in the similar direction. So you can put all those together. That's called an affinity mapping, where you are converging those ideas and make it ready for the prototyping or make it ready for the next step. Okay, so this is the one way to do the ideation. And other way is, this is the last piece of tools and techniques, or 6 hat techniques. This is one of the favorite technique I use for my projects all the time. Okay, why? First of all, why we use 6 hats technique is, first of all, it generates immediate results. So at times what happens is, when giving you an example, when we are working on a project, while my team is working on the project and they are stuck, they're not able to generate good ideas, right? They are not able to generate good ideas. They simply come to me and say, sir, can we have a quick 6 hats? Can we have a quick session on a 6 hats, because we want to generate lots of more ideas and we want to go more creative. And this is why, so it generates immediate results. It's very simple to use. It also focuses on individual and group thinking. So each individual participant has an opportunity to be heard, an opportunity to give their ideas. And it's again triggers the collaboration, right? It also takes care of the negative aspects, like what could potentially go wrong if within these ideas, okay? Or what do we have to take care while? So it avoids potential threats, encourage communications, and improve decision making. We will talk about it in the process. So these are 6 hats, okay? Number 1 is, so first when we start, we first put a white hat. Okay, everybody puts a white hat, and basically what it says is, at this time we give like 5, 10, 15 minutes, depends on the project, depends on the size of the, depends on the work you are doing it. Okay. So in the white hat, what everybody does is first puts all the facts and figures, like what data communicates. What do we know about the problem? What do we potentially know about the market size? What do we potentially know about the solution areas or competitors? Or so basically any compliances, any facts and figures which we need to take care of it, first we put it on the paper. So we exactly know what the data communicates, right? So we have the facts, we have the numbers, we have the compliances to be taken care, everything we have it. Then let's say we go to the red hat. Red hat is the emotions hat. This is where we talk about the emotions. Now, when I say emotions, it's not love and hate. It's about this particular area is very cumbersome. This particular area is very frustrating, or this is very good. This particular process is very good. The experience is very good here. These are the areas where there is a lot of challenges. My customers are not happy. This is where the improvement is needed. So in the entire process, in the entire idea, in the entire section of your business or a process step, you are putting that which has a good experience, which has a negative experience, and in what time. Like, some of the processes, it's too lengthy and cumbersome. There is a room for a mistake because it's a lot of manual work. So the emotions are negative. There is a frustration emotions here. So exactly what to when you are thinking about the ideas, what to take care of it. Because if the emotions are good, if somebody is very happy with the process, that this is really good, you really don't want to change that. You want to keep that intact, or you want to preserve that good practice. But you want to only change the bad practice where the negative expressions are there, right? So this is where this is the hat will help you where to focus in terms of crafting and experience. Okay. Then you wear a yellow hat. Yellow hat is the optimism. That optimism is what do we have already? What are the goods we have and what good we are looking as an output? What are the positives we are looking at the output? What are the expected positive outcomes we are looking at? So here we talk about the positive. We talk about we become optimistic and think about the expectations in terms of positivity. Okay. Then we wear a black hat. Let's say black hat is this is where we talk about threats. Where we have to be cautious, where we have to be careful. What could go wrong? What happens? Let's say, for example, if I'm talking about reopening a college, then I also have to think about it. That what happens that third wave comes, right? So this is just an example, very simple example, but this is where I know that I have to consider these negative aspects as well, because something could go wrong, and if it goes wrong, I have to be cautious about it. I have to consider these potential threats also. That what if this thing goes in a unexpected way, right? So so when I'm generating ideas, I am being careful about those things also. So I know where I have to be careful, but we are doing it more cautiously. Okay. Green hat this is where we go creative. This is where we generate ideas. This is where we think about the solutions. This is where we actually use the Postit approach again, brain down, brain right, and brain this. So basically we are come up with an ideas, push ourselves from the relevance to the novelty. We ensure that we get lots of ideas. We don't stuck with the relevant ideas and so on and so forth. And the blue hat is the finally control. Now, normally this hat is worn by one person who basically encourages this discussion, right? He manages the entire facilitation. Like when we are talking about white hat, he ensures, the guy with the blue hat ensures that people only talks about facts and figures. When we are talking about the optimism, he ensures that people are not talking negative. People are only talking positives, right? All these things happen at the 6 hats. So this is simple 6 hat technique for the ideation. So, and as I always says, we don't want to live in somebody else's future. We want to live in our own future. Okay. So this is where we conclude on the ideations. I have one more activity, but looking at the participations, I don't know whether you want to do it or not. But this is just a simple activity I have. It's called Think for the Future, where I was expecting people to imagine. But if you are all ready, we can do it. If you are out of time, we can go to question answer directly. Either way, I am okay with that. I will let Shipra and Princy take it. Any questions you may have, you can feel free to ask. Princy, Shipra, you're on mute in case you are speaking. I hope this is clear, by the way. I hope you have enjoyed it. It gives you some good understanding on how to ideate in a different manner. And feel free to ask me any questions you may have. And if you are okay, if you are, everybody is on to do one more activity. It's a fun activity. It's called Things from the Future. But if everybody is on, otherwise you can say that.
Sure, I think we should first take the questions because it's already 2:30. And then if we have time, we can go ahead.
Okay, let's take questions first. Okay, hold on, let me stop the presentation.
Guys, if you have any questions, please go ahead and unmute yourself or drop in the chat box.
No questions? Okay. Give me how many of you have actually listened to the presentation. That's important. Sir, what is more important? What is more important in terms of what, Jay? Having innovative ideas. As I said, first of all, having innovative ideas, what is more important first is have lots of ideas. Okay, that is important. All right, focus on the dedication to work on it. Yeah, so as I said, focus on have lots of ideas. Okay, do not get into the do not have a hurry to get into execution immediately, because it's a human tendency that moment we get an idea, we get started. Okay, it's important to get started. However, coming up with lots of ideas is very important. So you have choices when you want to get into the prototyping. So take a pause. Come up with, try to push yourself, try to push your imaginations. Give yourself a trigger. Like I always use these triggers. Maybe it might help you. I always use these triggers when we work with the problem that, okay, we have come up with an ideas, then I give them the triggers that now think about it, how Apple might solve this problem, or how Airbnb might solve this problem, or how Amazon might solve this problem. So it's a, so people start thinking from that direction. So this is where we can trigger our thought process. So what is important is push yourself, push your imagination. Okay, do not worry about the feasibility. Imagination is important, and while generating an idea, focus on human convenience. This is one of the important points. Try to add convenience to your ideas, to the people, to your target audience. Okay, do not worry about the processes. If you look at all the startups, if you look at all the successful new organizations, they literally added a convenience to the human lifestyle. Think about any, like Swiggy or Zomato or Ola, Uber, any startup you look at it, right? It added a convenience to our own lifestyle. It added the our experience, how we experience our life has been completely changed. So focus on that when you're generating ideas. Okay, I hope I've answered it. What is the importance of a team for a startup? Very important, very important, because don't try to do everything on your own. Try to leverage the skills of other people. And even in generating ideas, people have always a limitations, no matter how, the moment you start leveraging other people's idea, it helps you first of all generate creative ideas. So that is for sure. And also, if you are purely talk about not ideation and as a startup, in a startup there are a lot of things to be done, like execution, sales, marketing, business development, everything. So it's very important to distribute the work and do it dedicated to one action, right? And as a single entrepreneur, the scalability will be much slower. So I always believe that have a team, try to put an effort to find a co-founder. Let's say if you have an idea, this is where your idea comes, and this is where you have desire that I wanted to have a startup on this. Try to identify, work hard on finding the right co-founder for you, because that will take you a long way. Charvi asked, sir, sometimes there is a creative block. How to move past it? Any tips which can help? Yes. Question the basics. Okay, a lot of time we have a blockage because we attach the object and the function. Okay, let's say, giving you an example of a table. So this is what I have done exercise earlier with one of the team. I've asked them to create a desk. And okay, come up with the desk, come up with the creative ideas of a desk. Okay, reimagine the desk, what desk looks like. Everybody has put a lot of technology, like, they have put the touch screens, they said, we want to have our coffee machines, we want to have a comfortable massaging chair and everything. They have made desk very fancy, very comfortable, very luxurious, but they have kept the surface of the desk flat. Okay, now imagine that why the desk surface has to be flat, because this is some blockage we already have in our mind, that desk surface, so it always has to be flat. No, we cannot change that. This is the block. We never question the basic, that why desk has to be a flat surface. When you start asking this basic question, this is where, let's say if I ask you to imagine an alien, draw an alien. Majority of you will draw one either triangle or a square face, put eyes, put two antenna type of, put a body, two hands and two legs, right? Or maybe three hands or something like that. But the question is, why legs? What does legs do? The legs helps us to go from one place to the other. Okay, can I do the same function having absolutely different designs and not having legs? Okay, just because it is there does not mean it is true. You can still question the basics. So in order to remove that creative block, question the basics. I always say that just because it is there for 60 years, 70 years, that does not qualify it to be true. Even in the business, question it. Lot of time in the business, it says, sir, वो तो हम लोग 60 साल से ऐसे ही होता है, 25 साल से ऐसे ही करते हैं. So what? I still want to question that why do you do the same way since 5 years? That does not qualify to be true. So in order to break that creative block, question the basic. It's very important. Can we set timeline for getting an idea? You always have to have a timeline to get a good idea. You cannot give an infinite time. Give yourself like, okay, let's have a brainstorm for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and have a block and give the time frame, and then evaluate ideas. Then do the session again, but give yourself always a time, because we always work with the time pressure. Our brain functions. The moment you do not have the pressure of a time, your mind will get relaxed. Ki, chalo na yaar, abhi to time hai, we have a lot of time. It's okay if I don't get an idea, I'll get it tomorrow. And tomorrow never comes. So you always need to have that timeline. Okay. Tirtha, sir, sometimes it happens we can't brainstorm or get stuck on a certain point. What are your opinions, sir, to overcome such situations? As I said, it will always happen. And this is where the collaboration happens. The trigger happens. Use the triggers, like use visuals, use trigger, like ask the questions, like put the successful companies. Let's say if you are doing a business, even in, let's say, agriculture. Agriculture is the area where you are focusing on. Ask that what Apple will do in this case. If, let's say, Apple is in this business, what solution he might come up with, or how Amazon will solve this problem, or how Byju's will solve this problem, or how Cred will solve the problem, who is absolutely irrelevant from their business, and they have to solve this problem with their existing business model. That will help you think in a different way. Or you can ask the questions that how 5 years old kids solve this problem. Okay, try to detour your thought process, or ask absolutely irrelevant person which has nothing to do with that field. Okay, and go and ask that, what, I have this problem, what do you think? and present it to them and let them have questions for you. Ask people who are not relevant to your field and ask them to give you solutions. Okay, they might give few points. That few points may not be relevant, but it will surely detour your thought process. It will break your blockage of your thought process. Okay, so try to do that and break that pattern. Yeah.
Sir, we have received a question through YouTube. What are some factors to keep in mind when screening through multiple ideas from a brainstorming session?
Okay, that's a good question. So now, normally I do it in a multiple ways. One of the technique I use is the categorization. When I have, let's say, I have 50 different ideas. I have come up in the brainstorming session. I categorize into the three sections. One is the relevant, simple, or a simple ideas, or a doable ideas. That I know that these ideas are doable. I don't have any problem in terms of execution. So I put all those ideas into that bucket. The second bucket I put it is all the delightful ideas. That these are the best ideas. Agar ye ho jaye na, so there's nothing like it. All put those ideas into that bucket. And the finally is the long shot ideas. Long shot ideas is the ones which is good, but may not be possible in today's time. Let's say it uses the technology, very futuristic technology, or even it is possible in terms of a technology, but as an individual, you might not have the resources, you might not have that much funding, you might not have the infrastructure to support those. Put this into the long shot that, you know what, I will surely do this. This is a good idea, but as of now, in my circumstances, it is not possible. So you simply park those ideas. Now focus on delightful ideas that, okay, how do I make, because these are the ideas are the ones which is the best ideas. Focus on then go in the reverse way, that how do I make it happen? What are the things which should be done? So simply categorization will help you make the decision much easier. And even if you are confused at times, first work on the prototype. Take the prototype and validate your ideas. Do not reject any ideas based on the assumption that this might work or this might not work. Even if you're confused, let's say we do a lot of marketing and branding ideas our team generates. We actually validate almost all the ideas. Let's say, okay, let's do in a small segments. Yahan pe ye karte hain, yahan pe wo karte hain, yahan pe ye karte hain, and let's see parallelly, like if we have like 5 or 10 ideas, we actually prototype all the 10 ideas and get the feedback that which idea works, and we narrow down and we scale. We narrow down and scale, and ultimately we filter it out to 1 or 2 ideas which gets the maximum response. Okay, so prototyping is the next step, where you your idea based on the assumptions that yaar ye nahi hoga, ye possible nahi hai, or it may not be feasible. Don't, because assumption has a lot of limitations. It's your assumption, okay. So let the market tell you that its idea is good or bad. Yeah.
Sir, something similar on the lines of feasible idea.
Yeah.
There's a question in YouTube again that, sir, you said that idea need to be imaginative and not feasible. Don't you think that there is a fallacy here? Please share your insights. For example, building a city on an ocean is very rational approach and not an imaginative, I think.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Very good questions. Imaginative is okay. Imaginative and feasible. Ultimately, we have to get to the feasibility. Okay. But imaginative will give you the path. Imaginative will give you the thought process to trigger that, you know what, I can think in that direction. Okay. When you talk about, we only think about the feasibility. You are stuck with the existing situations. Okay. Imaginative does not mean that it has to happen. It can at least open the path of a thought process. It opens the path. Okay, you know what, if I want to do it, it gives you the direction to something more feasible. It give you, see, in order to execute it in an immediate form, when you imagine something, you're imagining for the long term. Okay. But it will give you the thought process that, you know what, I want this in by 2040. What can I do today to go there, to reach there? How do I reach to the minimal viable product or a minimum feasible product today? But if you don't have that vision, if you don't have that imagination, your feasibility will also have a limitation. Okay, so it's just a path, it's just a direction. Okay, so I hope I made that clear.
Yes. Yes. Sir, I think we don't have any more questions. In case we do, we'll forward them to you. Thank you so much for a very insightful and easy to understand session. I think everybody is taking something away today from the session.
I hope everybody has got a good learning and good understanding. So, thank you very much.
Yes, sir. It was great having you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.